here, though I am not able to see you all, but I hope that my words will.
Assistant Professor.
Yeah, I think Dr. Singh is introducing me.
Yes. First, yes, sir. One
Okay.
second, sir. Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Abhilasha Singh, Amity School of Liberal Arts. I welcome you all to
हाँ
this
सर
webinar on the
हाँ शुरू हो
topic
चुका है शुरू हाँ 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 हो चुका हो
Indian
चुका
Ancient Greek Literature. I appreciate. So, should I start again?
yes
No,
you
it's
can
okay.
continue, please continue.
I welcome you all to this webinar on the topic Indian Ancient Greek Literature. I appreciate all of the attendees and hope this may add some drops in the ocean of your knowledge. The purpose behind this webinar is to look deeper into the thoughts and ideas of two great civilizations and their culture. Now, I would like to introduce a very esteemed speaker, Dr. Anil Kumar Singh, Head of Greek Chair, School of Language, Literature and Culture Studies, JNU Delhi. He holds PhD, MBA and MA degrees and has attended courses in modern Greek language, literature and culture studies at prestigious Greek universities. He has also served JNU as coordinator of the Linguistic Empowerment Cell and National Service Scheme. He also did his IKY postdoctoral research at University of Ioannina, Greece. He has recently published a book named Dialogue of Civilizations, India and Greece. I would request Professor Hemant Kumar Jha, Coordinator, Amity School of Liberal Arts, for welcome address. Sir, please.
Great. Yeah. Good morning everybody, can you hear me please? Can you hear me please, Abhilasha ma'am? Can
Yes,
you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir. Of course. Yes, sir.
Good morning everybody. uh, First of all, I would like to thank my director, Dr. S.K. Jha, for giving me this opportunity to welcome our, honored guest, Dr. Anil Singh. Uh, In fact, I'm quite excited today because being a student of English literature, Greek is,
I request the panelists, will you please keep your phone on mute mode for some time, just for.
I will take 1 or 2 minutes only. I'm really excited today because Greek literature is a part of English literature. Because we have read Homer, Iliad, Virgil, etc. Besides, one more important thing, right from the childhood we have heard about Alexander. Alexander the Great. And there is a great city in Egypt. Alexandria. Besides, I was also I'm not sure, in fact, that the Indian Empire of Magad Empire was greatly influenced by the Greek warriors, and Chandragupta Maurya was also married perhaps to the daughter of Seleucus. And from the last night I was reading about all these things. I'm really interested to know from Dr. Anil Singh, and my on behalf of my audience, that today's session is going to be an enlightened session, and at the end we shall have an enriching experience today, and I'm sure that many of you will have many curiosities like me. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abhilasha ma'am, for giving this opportunity. Please invite our honored guest to continue the speech.
So
Thank you very much.
before start this session, I will request all of you to. We are open for the question answer round once we finish this session. So you can write down there's one option of question answer. You can just type your questions there. So sir will give the answer, Dr. Anil sir. So please now you sir, you may please start your.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jha. Thank you, Dr. Abhilasha, for giving me this opportunity to interact the students and faculty members. Uh, this is a very intriguing subject, in fact, and being a student of Greek studies, I took this opportunity to not only to congratulate MIT University for organizing such webinar, but also I congratulate to the students of MIT University to be able to discuss a theme that civilization to which I think the senior one of the Chauhans, one of the founders of the MIT, has recently gained citizenship, Greek citizenship. They have. So I'm very happy to join you today.
There is some disturbance. I request all of you to keep your just mute yourself.
Yes, that is better now. It's better now. So, why should we take an interest in this Greek civilization? That is a very important question. And let me try to first answer this question. Actually, our discussion will be based on questions only. I am not here to, to preach something or to tell you something new, but just to discuss those questions which come to my mind when I read literature as a student, and try to understand the dialogues between civilizations. And being an Indian, how much this is important to understand the Greek civilization, history of Greek civilization, and the subject matters which has been discussed in uh, ancient Greek literature, because this is ancient Greece, which is known to give enlightenment to the modern world, especially after the 15th, 16th century, after the Renaissance in the Europe. So India came into contact with the Greek world, I think, at that time when we were having this Indus Valley civilization, Mohenjo-daro, and there was Minoan civilization in ancient Greek in the island of Crete, Crete. So at that time, there was some type of trade was taking place between the Bronze Age, Crete and Indus civilization. And since then, 2500 BC or something, since then we are having continuous relationship with this uh, island, Crete and Greece, the country Greece, the modern Greece. So the knowledge of India to the Greece and the knowledge of Greece to India is very important to understand the intellectual traditions of the world, of the known world, from ancient time to present time. Uh, you can see this subject in this way, that when we talk about cultures, when we talk about great cultures, uh, or we try to understand the world in we 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 hear two most important phrases or words, Eastern civilization and Western civilization. And when we talk about Eastern civilization, we see world starting from India towards Japan, and we find that this part of the world has been influenced by the value system or by the teachings of a teacher from India, that is Gautam Buddha, and second is Confucius in China. So if you try to see towards east from India, you will find some sort of uh, you know uh, and some type of influence of Buddhism almost on every culture in every country, whether it is China, Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, uh, till Japan, some sort of Buddhistic ideas. And when we talk about the Western civilization, we all know that the Western civilization, see its origin, its intellectual tradition, origin of its intellectual tradition in Greece, in ancient Greece. So, in order to understand the world in totality, I emphasize that being an Indian, we have to understand the Greek civilization, Greek culture, ancient Greek literature. And in the same way, if somebody in West want to understand the world in its totality, the scholars cannot ignore the Indian knowledge, that is Sanskrit texts and Prakrit texts or Pali texts or Buddhist canon, etc. So to have a total idea, to see the world in its totality, we need to understand the Greek civilization, being an Indian, in order to uh, widen our understanding, and in order to see the intellectual tradition in its totality. So saying that, now we have to understand a little bit of the development of the historical connections between Greece and India before I comment on the knowledge of Greeks or the mentions of India in ancient Greek literature. We have to understand the historical development or the history of the connections between the two civilizations. So starting from Crete, we know that how this world history has moved. We know that from somewhere in Egypt, or maybe we can start from Phoenicians. That Phoenicians moved towards Greece mainland. Greek acquired their alphabet, etc., from Phoenicians, and then they developed into a great, language, ancient Greek language, which gave us most of the ancient literature, and then Homeric Greek and the development of the classical Greek, that is a time of around 800 to 1000 years, and then coming of the text. At the same time, we see some sort of the development of the literature in Indian part. We can quote about the development of the or the compiling of the Vedas, and then the later Vedic material, Upanishads, etc. So we can, and we have the known history of the development of the literature from 9th, 8th century BC, and in the both countries we can have the parallels, that the development of the epic literature there, Iliad and Odyssey in India, Mahabharata and Ramayana, and so on. So about India, Greeks knew about India, but there was no written word about India for a very long period. Homer has not discussed anything about India. First known, word, a written word or discussed word about India comes from an author named Scylax of Carianda. Carianda was the place where he lived, and Scylax was the person who was deputed to chart out or to find out the course of the river Indus in ancient India. We all know that the Persian Empire was the largest empire at the time of Darius, and there was no other empire as big as was the Persian Empire. And Greece being at the the western end of the Persian Empire, and northwest province of India being the eastern foremost area of the Persian Empire, it was not very the common meeting place for both the people, for the Greeks as well as for the Indians. They were not having a direct connection. In fact, they were meeting somewhere on the land of Persia, either at the Persian capital at that time in the Darius court, or some other cities or the markets in the Persian Empire. So most of the meetings were taking place in the court of Darius, and later on the other Persian like Xerxes and other Persian emperors. So knowledge about India was being gained by the Greeks, not directly. They were not, every time they were having a direct connection, or they were not visiting India. Whatever they were knowing either from others descriptions, or from the writings or the official letters or the documents which were available in the court or in the library of the Persian Empire. So starting from the Scylax we have four great authors of ancient times who have mentioned about India. One is Scylax, and then Hecataeus, and then Herodotus and Tatius. These four names we know who wrote about India, and what they wrote about India is very interesting to know. Most of these authors never visited India. Whatever they knew from their colleagues to whom they were meeting at the different places, or from the people, traders, and the people who were using navigation. They knew, they heard stories about India from these people, and they make these documents. Most of these stories were fables or marvels or myths about India, to which we can say romance about India, romantic literature or romance about India. These four authors about whom I am talking is they came to they started to or they wrote about India before Alexander, and then there was a second chain of authors, second list of authors who wrote about India. These people were the companions of the Alexander, who came with Alexander, crossing all this Persian Empire, came to India, northwest province, obviously, and they were part of the military. Most of them were generals of military generals of Alexander, and most important names are Nearchos in English, Nearchos in Greek, and Onesicritus in English, Onesicritus in Greek. These two were important authors who have written in detail about India. And then we have authors like Megasthenes, who lived in India after the Alexander's attack or Alexander's meeting to the Indian soil. In ancient literature which discuss about India, we find these authors. So Scylax, Hecataeus, this Herodotus, Tatius, Onesicritus, Nearchos, Megasthenes. The original writings of most of these authors we don't find. We find the mention of these writings through other authors like Strabo, Arrian. They quote these authors, and we find the fragments of these quotations in different works. So original work we do not have of these authors. So we have to, we have to keep in our mind then when we talk about Herodotus, or we talk about Scylax, or we talk about Onesicritus, we are not reading the originals. We are just reading the quotations of these authors in the later writers' books. And then, of course, in Roman writers also, we find the fragments of the writings of Scylax and Hecataeus and Aristobulus, etc. And even in the books of the Plutarch, the lives, they also, quote these authors. So this knowledge comes to us through many minds, many authors, and the present available material is compiled through translations, translations of Macrandal, translations of Jacobi, collections of, and in India we have the great collection from the Professor R.C. Mazumdar, Classical Accounts of India. So this knowledge has come to us with a very long travel. So we have to, when we see, this knowledge, we have to understand the minds also which were writing about India. The whatever knowledge we have of the Scylax, of the Aristobulus, of the Hecataeus, etc., we have to take care of the biases and prejudices of those authors also who were, bringing this or quoting this material to us, which is now which is available to us in its present form. So now, if even today, image of India, has been built through these texts in the minds of many generations of Europe. Uh, we know that after Renaissance, especially after Renaissance, the Greek texts were rediscovered and were taught in the universities of, especially of England, Oxford, Cambridge. And through these texts only, an image of India was always there in the minds of the intellectual worlds or the scholars of the West. And what was this image? Let me talk about the words of the Tatius, what he was thinking about India, or what he wrote about India when he was discussing India. Tatius, tells us that there were there are people in India who can sleep in their ears. There are people in India who have only one eye. There are people in India who are dog-headed. These type of stories, these type of marvels about India, we see in these texts. And before that, Herodotus was also discussing about the wonders of India. He talked about the gold digging ants in India, the ants which dig gold. And the size of these ants are no bigger than the dogs. So these type of stories we find in these texts. There are people who live on trees and such stories. More or less they were marvels about Indian kings. They say that Indian king is served by different tribal people. They come and present, they are produced to the kings. So, about Indian medicine, we find the stories, especially about this black pepper, the herbs found in India. These type of things have been quoted in these texts. So the marvels of India, these stories were making an image of India in the mind of West since the time of, since maybe 8th century BC, 7th century BC. So hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I clear? You are able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Of course.
Okay.
Sir, you're clear enough.
You are very, very much audible and clear.
Okay. So now we have these marvels about India, and um, now the time came when Alexander came to India. These writers were, or the writings of these people were known to Alexander. When he was coming to India, he was very well aware about these stories of India, about the cults of India, about the story that Dionysius, he came to India. So these all stories Alexander knew, and he was very keen to verify these stories about India. So when he asked Nearchus, one of his generals, and Onesicritus, to collect the or to verify the stories, another new things added into the knowledge of India. One very important event when Alexander came to India took place, which that was the meeting of the Alexander with the Indian gymnosophists. What happened? Alexander was camping near the river Vyas, and he came to know that there are some naked people who are sitting in the jungle, nearby jungle, in very different postures. Somebody is standing on his head, somebody is hanging from tree. So he became very curious, and he asked Onesicritus to go and see what is the matter. And Onesicritus visited these people, and he asked that what they were doing. And these gymnosophists, these philosophers, or these saints, in Indian tradition, some people say that they were Jain Sharmans, but we cannot say that whether they were Jain monks or not. But these philosophers, these Sharmans, met Onesicritus, and Onesicritus have a dialogue with these gymnosophists with the help of two translators. So there were two people in between Onesicritus and gymnosophists. They discussed, and Onesicritus became very impressed with the knowledge of the gymnosophists, and he told Alexander about the philosophical knowledge of these philosophers, and Alexander invited these monks or saints to his court. And now we have different point of view of scholars. Some say that philosophers went to the Alexander's court, but others says that Alexander himself visited to gymnosophists. We will not go into these debates. The importance of this meeting is that this meeting of Alexander with gymnosophists established India as a land of philosophers. And this image of India as a land of philosophers is still, it remained, it was reminded to the scholars through these texts, even in the modern times. And since this meeting, India was always known as the land of philosophers. This meeting became so important that it was translated into almost 24 to 30 languages, and almost 80 versions of this stories available in different parts and different literatures of the world. So this meeting of Alexander with the philosophers added to the image of India. The first image was it is a marvelous land. It is a land of plenty. Tatius also talk about this, that there is rivers of honey and milk. Even today we hear such type of phrases that India is a land of, especially the state of Haryana in India. It is said that वहाँ दूध दही की और शहद की नदियां बहती हैं. This phrase is still popular. So these phrases or these sayings about India was present even in the classical texts. And so India was known for wonderful animals also. There is a saying, Herodotus has mentioned about this, that there was an animal named Martikhora, who was very ferocious, who was having 3 lines of teeth in its mouth, and so on. So the land of marvels, land of philosophers, land of just people. We also find this image of India, the land of just people, land of justice. People of India are very dharmic people, dharm priya, nyay priya. And these sayings we also, in some of the Upanishads, we find the same phrases like Karana Pravar for people who were having big ears. And then Ek Lochan, person of one people, one eye. Huh? So from Sanskrit text, we also find these mentions of these marvels. So this image was traveling to the modern West, but and when after the fall of the in 1453, when the Constantinople fall, and there was Renaissance begin, and there was the discovery of the Greek text, and it became the most sought after knowledge in the West. These texts came into the hand of the intellectuals, and the image of India, was introduced, or India was introduced through these texts to the Western world. And perhaps this was a reason that even now, if you visit Europe, people may ask you that is India is still land of philosophers and snake charmers. If a person is not educated, and if he has not visited many parts of the world, he can ask these questions from a person who is visiting from India to Europe. So I would actually, I'm not very comfortable with this type of discussions. When we are face to face, it is better to discuss issues. And this idea of webinar is actually a very non-Greek idea. We know that Greeks love to discuss issues on the table. Symposiums are actually parties with good food and good drinks, and we discuss issues. So this is it which is coming to my mind. I would like to take some questions if somebody, and then we will increase our discussion. Dr. Jha.
Hello, Dr. Jha. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I have, one or two, things to curiosities, not questions, for example. It's quite a fascinating subject, for, us, for me, in fact, because being in English literature, the first thing that I would like to, know what attracted you towards this fascinating subject. I would like briefly to know about your journey. Number one. Number two, there are two things, there's something that we call Hellenism, the influence of Hellenism on English literature. For example, John Keats, say, for example, Tennyson, and also it is said that, I'm not sure that Shakespearean tragedies are the extension of, Greek tragedies. I would like to have your reflection on these matters.
Actually, if you see literature, the modern world literature, you will find the motivation in most of the texts from the ancient Greek text. Yes, of course, when see Oxford and Cambridge, the history of Oxford University and Cambridge University, or the all intellectual traditions in England, especially, you have to understand the traditions of or history of the development of English literature as a whole, to understand the influence of Greek language and literature on English literature. See, the development of English as such, I think, because I am not a student of English literature, what I understand is around 15th, 16th century, the language of England was not English, it was Celt, and England was called Celt civilization. And nowadays we don't find much Celt language available in England. The development of English itself has to be understood, because before that, uh, we have to understand the medieval world, the loss of knowledge, the dark age. We know that there was a fabulous classical Greece till 4th century BC, the age of Pericles. You know, after that, somehow came the Roman Empire. Roman Empire was a Roman civilization was a civilization of soldiers, and they adopted whatsoever it was in Greek literature and philosophy and architecture and art, etc., with Latin names or Roman names. And then this knowledge came to the hands of Arabs, because uh, we know that before Renaissance, the knowledge of Greeks was in the hands of the Arab civilization, and most of the Greek texts were translated in Umayyad and Abbasid, royal courts. And it was up to the Arabs, if they have not translated the Greeks texts which they found in different parts of their empire. It was the Greek civilization. We may have never known about the Greek civilization. And when these texts through Arabs were, the modern world got them, when empire again, when the fall of Ottoman Empire took place and the emergence of the new world came after Renaissance. And during the Renaissance, the new empire came, that was the British Empire. So the development of the literature is closely related to the development of the empires, and the who is the ruler is most important of the for the development of a certain type of literature. So when the British Empire became the everything of the world, or the monarch of the world, or the ruler of the world, the world came into the hands of the British. They tried to find out the best, whatever best available in the world, in every field, and in that spirit, during the and the relationship, we have to understand the relationship between the Industrial Revolution, the empire building, the colonies, there is a very big canvas of ideas on which we have to test this. So the everything which was taking place in England was after Renaissance. Whatever is best in literature, they try to find out whatever is the best, and what they found was the Greek literature. And in the universities of the England, especially in Oxford and Cambridge, the biggest departments were of classics, Greek literature, of course. And the authors and intellectuals of that time were not considered, literate enough, or intellectual, if they were not aware with the Greek ideas and Greek things. So whosoever was an educated person at that time was supposed to deeply influenced or in deep knowledge of ancient texts. So the making of the ideas in any field was, the initiation of the whole thought process, or the making of the ideas, was through the intense study of the Greek text or the classical text. So it was very natural, very obvious that the intellectuals, writers, poets, they were influenced by these great classical texts, whether they were not only poets and dramatists or anyone else, even the scientists. If you scientists like Freud, who took his Oedipus Rex theory from this Oedipus, the character in ancient Greek. So the text related to science, text related to maths, text related to tragedy, to comedy, to drama, to Aristotle's Poetics is the basis of the of the principles or rules of the modern world poetry. So we have to have that in our mind. This is my answer to your question to the influence of literature on Shakespeare, on Tennyson, etc. Of Greek. You ask a personal question like who, why I got attracted towards the study of Greek. Actually, I'm a student of a great Greek scholar in India and the only Greek scholar in India, Professor U.P. Arora. He was Greek chair in Jawaharlal Nehru University. Before that, he was my teacher when I was doing my master's in arts in ancient history, culture, and civilization from MJP Ruhelkhand University, Bareilly. We are the only department in India who was giving a specialization in our MA course in the study of Hellenic and Hellenistic civilization. So during my master's in arts, I was studying this course as my specialization, and then I got this fellowship from the government of Greece for my postdoctoral studies in comparative cultures. I studied actually my PhD is on the comparative culture, that is India and Greece. So, this is it. It took me to this subject. I stayed in Greece for 2 years and learned the language. Long story, in fact.
Thank you very much. It was quite fascinating. I was really fascinated that a person like you, when you're talking about Greek, Greece, all these Hellenic influences, it was really quite fascinating and quite inspiring as well.
Yes, and the word Hellas, actually Greece is not a native word. Thus, Greece is called Hellas. It is from Hellas comes the Hellenic civilization, and whatever is pre-Alexander. For Alexander, the term was Hellenic, and after Alexander, the term became Hellenistic. The empire which was under the influence of the Alexander and his successors, that world is called Hellenistic, and before that, the world is from Hellenic, comes from the Hellas, that is the people of Greece. They were called Hellas, and the land of Hellas, which became, and in Hindi it became Yunnan, which comes from the term Ionia. Ionia is nowadays part of Turkey, Asia Minor, and from the term Ionia comes Yunnan. And most of the great scholars of the ancient Greece belong to the Ionia. The name which I took, like this Herodotus or Hecataeus or Aristobulus, these were residents of the Ionia. The whole intellectual tradition we know about Greece never took place on the mainland of Greece. Most of these scholars, scientists like Thales, like Pythagoras, like others, most of them were residents of the Ionia, and they moved from Ionia to Greek mainland and then to different parts of the world. Most of them were part of the Persian courts, and where they were having the exchange of ideas.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my next question is, please enlighten us with some examples of the similarities between Indian classics and Greek classics.
Many. We have many similarities in Indian classics and Greek classics. See, we don't have a third number of the great epic in any of the civilization, whether it is India or Greece. In India, we find Ramayana and Mahabharata. In Greece, we have Iliad and Odyssey. So, Odyssey is very near to Ramayana. There are many similarities between Ramayana and Odyssey. And in the same way, we have many similarities in Iliad and Mahabharata. Iliad, and even not only the characters in plot in which we have similarities, but in many other ideas also. The difference is between the time span. Mahabharata is a much bigger story. It has a time span of a very long period. While Iliad,
About 5 generations.
yes, and Iliad has a small time period, 10 days only. But if you see the similarities between the characters, it is amazing. Characters like the story and the motives, like the motives in the different stories, like the Achilles heel, which is the story of the Achilles heel and the stories of the death of the Shri Krishna. Krishna died
Yes, sir.
because of an arrow in the heel of Shri Krishna, and
Yes, sir.
you find the Achilles, and then the stories of the making of the body of Duryodhan of stone by the Gandhari. In the same way, the mother of Achilles made the body of the Achilles, except the heel. He was, it was not possible to, attack on Achilles with any weapon because his body was so strong that, and and other characters also. There are many similarities. There are many books on this. There are a lot of research
Okay, sir.
done, and
Okay, sir.
yes, lot of books are there.
Okay, sir.
The
Sir,
yes, yes, Abhilasha. I am unable to hear your voice.
hello.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
sir.
yes.
Sir, one question from our faculty member, Dr. Chani Sen Gupta. The question is,
Hello.
did yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah,
Am I
please go
audible,
on.
sir? Sir, one question from our faculty member, Dr. Chani Sen Gupta. That
Yeah.
is, did trade lead to literary contacts between Greek and India? If yes, then to what extent did trade influence the exchange of literary ideas?
Very good question. It is very interesting question. In fact,
She's from history department. She's from history department, sir.
yes. It's very interesting question. In fact, you have to understand the Greek mind in order to get the right answer of this question. Greek mind, you know, Greek mind never accepted, except Greeks, that anybody else is a civilized person or educated person. That's why there was two terms in the Greek civilization: Greeks and barbarians, Greeks and others. You have to understand the concept of Greeks and others in order to understand the answer of this question. And then you have to understand the mindset of the Greeks towards the term education. Education and who is an educated person. So although most of the knowledge about the other parts of the world was coming to Greeks through the mouth of the tradesmen, but they never gave importance to them until these information were written by a classical author, because written word was more important rather than a hearsay or a word which is only heard. So definitely there was a lot of knowledge coming to authors from tradesmen, but they never recognized that as a true knowledge. They recognized true knowledge or knowledge only those words which was written by accepted authors of that time. That's why, although they tell about the marvels about India, all those marvels came from the mouth of the tradesmen. But what they were saying, that they were laughing, although they were saying all those things, but Herodotus also say that I am saying because this is my job to say it, because I am a historian, and I do not believe on these things. I am presenting it to my readers, because I have heard about them. So, and after Herodotus quoted them, they become part of the psyche of the people. So, yes, the stories. And why these marvels were important for these tradesmen? Because tradesmen were making stories like gold digging ants and about the ferocious Marti Khora, because they wanted to wanted to extract a premium price on their products. And they build a story around the difficulty of getting gold from India. They were having a premium price. That we fought with death to find this product. So this product is priceless. That's why Indian Kali Mirch, that is pepper from India, was given a price of the weight of the pepper. जितना भारी काली मिर्च होगा उतना गोल्ड आपको प्राइस में मिलेगा. You can only extract premium price when there is a story behind it. So this is all about it. Yes, definitely tradesmen, very important source of information. Yes.
Shivam sir, is there any question from your end, sir? Hello.
I have one question from a student, if you allow me.
Yeah, please.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, the question is, the student is Shruti. She is asking to sir, can you please throw some light on how Greece plays an important role in our ancient Indian literature?
Pardon, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir, sure. Can you please throw some light on how Greece plays an important role in our ancient Indian literature?
Our Greek plays.
How does the Greece plays an important role in ancient Indian literature? The
Not
question
much.
is just vice versa to my question. The student has asked this.
Yes. So not much. The Greek impact on Indian literature is almost it's nil. There is Indian literature, especially Sanskrit literature, does not recognize Alexander at all. It is very difficult to find even one mention. Only one or two mention we find in ancient literature. One sentence. Aruna the Yavana Saketam. Yavan, one or two. Aruna the Yavana Madhyamika, Aruna the Yavana Saketam. It is I think in either in grammar of Panini or yes, in grammar, one of the grammar books in ancient Sanskrit literature, which says Yavan came to India, they reached up to the Saket, which is I think Ujjain nowadays. And another is that this shloka, which says that यद्यपि यूनानी मलेच्छ हैं, तथापि वो even if Greeks are foreigners, they are not Indians, but we should respect them because they know all. They are knowledgeable people. They are lovers of philosophy. So only these two mentions we find about Greeks in Indian literature. So this is because Alexander never came to mainland India. He came back from the Vyas river. He could not cross. He could not come into the mainland Greece. And the ambassadors are not of much importance to Indians.
Abhilash, ek bari hai na.
Hello. Hello.
You are audible, sir. You are audible. You are very much audible.
Yeah, please. So the vice versa, and the impact of Indian literature on Greek, another part of the question. So Indian literature is untouched from the Greek ideas, but certainly there was a communication between Indians and Greeks through the Persian courts, as I told you, and there is impact of Indians on Greeks, as it is said, because there is a question by Vijit, where there any religious influence in India and the Greek intrusion occurred on the Indian soil. Okay, I will answer this question later on. First, this influence on Greek literature from India. There was, an influence. It is considered by the scholars that the Pythagorean pyramid, Pythagorean, this were available in Shrot Sutra. Shrot Sutra were available to the world 200 years before the Pythagoras. So there were, and then from Greece we find the horoscope, Hora. That is, so there was influence in the field of medicine, in the field of astrology, in the field of some other parts, but in literature as such, in the writings, in the poetry, in the prose, there was not much influence. But in other fields, there was lot of interaction between Greece and India. India has given a lot to the world. We all know that we gave Aryabhatta and all that. It's a later part. So they didn't find much from Greece, but yes, Greece has learned a lot from India. You can consider me a little bit biased about it, but if we do an objective study, we will find that because of the biases of the Western scholarship, certain achievements of Indians, have still not been recognized by the world. So it's a debatable question, in fact. Okay, now we come to this question: were there any religious influence in India when the Greek intrusion occurred on the Indian soil? A lot of influence on religion. My answer will be, it's again very debatable, but my personal opinion is this, that whatever we have today, if we consider Hinduism as a dharma or religion, Hinduism has taken a lot from ancient Greek world. First of all, our temples. The temple architecture was introduced in the world, and when I say world, it means the world which was at that time starting from the Greece up to the Himalayas, up to the India, northwest frontier province, more or less the Persian Empire and the nearby areas of the Persian Empire. So that was the ancient world at that time for the people of Europe up to the people of Asia. And I am not talking about the world beyond the Himalayas. Okay, so you have to. So temples and the sun worship. Okay, we know that Tacitus, even Herodotus and Tacitus, they talk about the worship of a sun and moon in India. Sun was a very prominent deity in ancient Greek civilization as well as in Iranian civilization, and the worship of Agni, the worship of fire was very important in the priests of the Iran, Persia, the Mag Brahmins. So these two things were very important, and you know how important fire is for us. We do all our yag or havan through fire. Fire is a mediator between the gods and the human beings. We offer our offerings to gods through fire. And sun is also a very important deity in India. It started from Apollo, and then Apollo in Greece, and then the traveling of the sun worship from Greece to India. So, and if you compare the Vedic gods with the Olympian gods, you will find the difference of the language only, and the gods are very much same. So, if we study the religious mythology of India and Greece, we will find striking similarities between two. So, the contribution of Greeks, India considered temple building in India started from this area which was ruled by the Greeks, Indo-Greek. We find 42 or more than that Greek rulers in northwest India, which is modern Pakistan, modern Afghanistan, modern Punjab, some part of the Indian Punjab. This area, which was the part of the Vedic civilization also, was ruled by the Greeks for a very long time in the Greek dynasty, and the Greek gods were popular there, and we know that there were language also. You find the Ashokan edicts in Greek and Aramaic and Sanskrit. So these are the evidences of the influence of Greece in India. Even the later on the Kushan Empire, which took the legacy of the Indo-Greeks in India, they issued their coins, which were which were having deities, and it is first time that we find Lord Ganesha on a coin or Lakshmi on a coin, and the goddess Durga, which was known as Nana in ancient Greece. Durga was, we find on the coins of the Kushans. So it will be a long, it will become a lecture in itself if I try to answer the question in detail. But there is a lot of influence on Indian religion from the Greece.
With your permission, can we stop here for? Yes, sir. Anil, sir.
Yes, sure.
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
sure.
Move ahead. Hemant, sir. Hello.
Yes.
Sir, should we move for vote of thanks, sir, now?
I should give the vote of thanks. I should give.
Yes, sir, of course.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Thank you. First of all, it was a very, I have a host of questions available with me. In fact, these are not the questions, these are the curiosities, I would like to know. But later on, some other time, because of the paucity of time, we are not able to, entertain some more questions. But it was a very exciting session, very fascinating, very inspiring, full of knowledge, full of discussions, full of details, and there are many questions available with us. Perhaps in the future we can organize one more, this type of webinar. Thank you very much, first of all, Dr. Anil Singh, Professor Anil Singh, for sparing time, during this Corona time to come here and, enlighten us on this, completely new subject. I'm really very thankful to you on behalf of our director, Asla, and on behalf of our, department, Amity School of Liberal Arts, Amity University, Haryana, and all the participants. I'm really thankful to you. I'm thankful to our co-conveners, especially Dr. Abhilasha Singh, Dr. Pooja Malik, and I'm also thankful to all the participants, especially, for example, who joined to this great and knowledgeable session. I'm really thankful, and I wish we can have some more sessions in the future. Thank you very much. I also thank, for example, the technical team, who helped us, to organize this kind of team, and thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Jha. And thanks to all participants. If you have questions, you can email me, and I will try to answer you. And I hope that I will have another opportunity to have a discussion after.
I have a number of things to talk, in fact, and it opened a new gate for us, so that we can enter into it, and we can, because I have also read Iliad and Odyssey, I've read a lot of, Greek tragedies and other things. So there are a number of besides, I wanted to know about, influence of, Greek on Magad Empire, and if because you're a student of history also, if there are some remains available even today, and there are a number of things, Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.